Tommy worked as a computer programmer in a small city. He lived alone in a modest apartment on the 5th floor of an old building. His life was simple and predictable. Wake up, go to work, come home, watch some TV, and sleep. He had a few friends, but mostly he kept to himself. Tommy never believed in aliens or UFOs or any of that stuff. He thought people who talked about such things were just making up stories for attention. It was a Thursday night in March when everything changed. A massive thunderstorm had rolled into the city, and the rain was coming down so hard that Tommy could barely see the street below from his window. The lightning was intense, flashing every few seconds and making the whole apartment light up like it was daytime. Tommy was sitting on his couch, eating leftover pizza and scrolling through his phone, when suddenly all the lights in his apartment went out. He thought it was just a power outage from the storm. Nothing unusual. He got up to find a flashlight in the kitchen drawer. But then something strange happened. The air in the room started to feel different, like it was vibrating or humming with some kind of energy. Tommy stopped moving. His heart started beating faster. The hair on his arms stood up. Something was very wrong, and then they appeared, right there in his living room. Two figures that seemed to shimmer into existence out of nowhere, like they were being painted into reality by invisible hands. Tommy dropped his phone. The screen cracked when it hit the floor, but he didn't even notice. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. He just stood there, frozen, staring at the two beings standing in front of him. They looked almost human, but not quite. Their skin had this silvery glow to it like moonlight on water. They were both tall, maybe 6 feet or more. Their eyes were the most striking thing about them. They changed colors constantly, shifting from blue to purple to green to gold like living jewels. They wore clothes that looked like they were made of liquid metal, flowing and moving as if they were alive. One of them was slightly taller than the other, with long silver hair that floated around her head like she was underwater. She had a commanding presence, the kind that made you pay attention even if you didn't want to. The other one seemed younger, with shorter hair and a softer expression. She looked curious, almost excited, while the taller one appeared more serious and focused. Tommy finally found his voice, but all that came out was a weak, shaky whisper. "What? What are you?" The taller one spoke first. Her voice was strange, musical almost, but the words were perfect English. "We mean you no harm. My name is Lyra, and this is my sister Zara. We come from a place very far from here." Tommy's legs felt like they might give out. He grabbed the back of the couch to steady himself. "This isn't real. This isn't happening. I'm dreaming. Or maybe I hit my head." Zara, the younger sister, smiled at him. It was a gentle smile, almost apologetic. "You're not dreaming, and you haven't injured yourself. We are quite real, I assure you. But how? Why are you here? In my apartment?" Tommy's voice was getting higher with each word. He was starting to panic. Lyra stepped forward, and Tommy instinctively stepped back. She stopped, holding up her hands in what seemed like a peaceful gesture. "Please try to remain calm. We have been observing your planet for some time. We are researchers, students of different cultures and civilizations across the universe. We have come to learn about humans, specifically about your social customs and bonding rituals." "Bonding rituals?" Tommy repeated, confused. "What does that even mean?" Zara jumped in, her eyes brightening with enthusiasm. "Relationships. Love, marriage, family structures. We find human connections absolutely fascinating. Your species forms such deep emotional bonds despite your relatively short lifespans. It's quite remarkable, really." Tommy felt like his brain was short-circuiting. He was having a conversation with aliens, in his apartment, during a thunderstorm, about love and marriage. None of this made any sense. Okay, but why me? Why my apartment? There are billions of people on this planet. Lyra tilted her head slightly, studying him. "We required a suitable subject for our research. Someone who lives alone, has stable employment, maintains social connections but not overwhelming ones, and fits within certain psychological parameters. You were an ideal candidate." "A candidate? A subject?" Tommy's fear was starting to mix with indignation. "I didn't sign up for this." "You can't just show up in someone's home and study them like they're some kind of lab experiment." "We understand this is shocking," Zara said softly. "But please believe us when we say we chose you carefully. We have been watching you for several weeks. We know this is your favorite pizza place." She pointed at the pizza box on the coffee table. "We know you prefer to work late on Tuesdays because the office is quieter. We know you call your mother every Sunday evening. This information should have terrified Tommy even more, but instead, it just made everything feel surreal. They had been watching him, studying him, for weeks, and he had no idea. "This is insane," he muttered, running his hands through his hair. "This is completely insane." "We need your cooperation," Lyra said, her tone becoming more serious. "We will be staying here with you for a period of time. We need to observe human behavior up close to understand how you live, how you think, how you feel." "Staying here? With me?" Tommy looked around his small apartment. "For how long?" "We are not certain yet," Lyra replied. "It depends on how our research progresses." Tommy felt like he was going to be sick. "And what if I say no? What if I tell you to leave, or call the police, or—" Before he could finish, Zara stepped forward and gently placed her fingertips on his forehead. Tommy felt a wave of warmth spread through his body, starting from where she touched him and flowing down to his toes. The panic that had been building in his chest suddenly melted away. His racing heart slowed. His breathing became easier. He felt calm, strangely, impossibly calm. "What did you do to me?" he asked, but his voice wasn't frightened anymore. "It was just curious. I helped you relax," Zara explained, removing her hand. "Your stress levels were becoming dangerous. We don't want you to harm yourself out of fear." Tommy sat down on the couch, still feeling that strange calm washing over him. He looked up at the two alien sisters standing in his living room. The storm continued to rage outside, lightning still flashing through the windows, but inside, everything felt oddly peaceful. "So you're really staying here?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Lyra confirmed. "And I don't have a choice?" "You always have choices," Zara said kindly. "But we hope you will choose to help us. We promise we will not hurt you. We're just here to learn." Tommy laughed, a short, slightly hysterical sound. "My life was so boring yesterday. So completely, wonderfully boring." Zara sat down on the other end of the couch, leaving a respectful distance between them. "Boring is not always bad. Boring is safe, predictable. We understand that we are disrupting your boring life, and we apologize for that." Lyra remained standing, her arms crossed, watching the interaction between her sister and the human. "We will try to minimize the disruption to your daily routine. You will continue to go to work, see your friends, live your life. We will simply observe." "Simply observe," Tommy repeated. "Right. Because having two aliens living in my apartment is totally normal and won't disrupt anything at all." Despite everything, despite the impossibility of the situation, Tommy found himself starting to accept it. Maybe it was whatever Zara had done to calm him down. Maybe it was just shock. Or maybe deep down some small part of him found this whole bizarre situation kind of interesting. His boring life had just become the most unboring thing imaginable. "Can I ask you something?" Tommy said after a moment of silence. "Of course," Zara replied. "Are there others like you? Other aliens watching other people?" Lyra and Zara exchanged a look. Then Lyra spoke. "There are many species in the universe, and many of them have visited your planet at various times. But we are the only ones conducting this particular type of research at this moment." Tommy nodded slowly, processing this information. "So I'm the only person on Earth who has two aliens living with him right now?" "That is correct," Lyra said. "Great," Tommy muttered. "Just great." The first few days were absolutely bizarre. Tommy would wake up in the morning and for just a second think everything had been a weird dream. Then he would walk into his living room and see Lyra and Zara, and reality would come crashing back. They slept, or at least did something that looked like sleeping, taking turns on his couch. They didn't seem to need as much rest as he did. Going to work became a challenge. Tommy sat at his desk, trying to focus on writing code, but his mind kept wandering back to his apartment. What were they doing while he was gone? Were they going through his stuff? Reading his emails? He had tried to tell them they couldn't touch his things, but Lyra had simply looked at him with those color-changing eyes and said, "We need to understand your life fully. That requires examining your environment." His co-workers noticed something was off. During a video meeting, his friend Kevin asked him if he was feeling okay. Tommy forced a smile and said he had just been sleeping poorly. It wasn't exactly a lie. How could anyone sleep normally knowing two extraterrestrial beings were in the next room? When Tommy came home from work each evening, Zara would greet him enthusiastically, asking a million questions about his day. What did he do? Who did he talk to? What did those conversations mean? Why did humans say, "How are you," when they didn't actually want a detailed answer? Lyra would sit nearby, taking notes on a device that looked like a tablet made of light. She rarely asked questions, but Tommy could feel her watching, analyzing, cataloging everything. After the first week, Zara became obsessed with human entertainment. She discovered streaming services and went through an entire romantic comedy series in 2 days. She would laugh at jokes, cry during sad moments, and then ask Tommy endless questions about why humans behaved the way they did in these shows. "Is this really how human courtship works?" she would ask. "Do people really fall in love so quickly? Why do they always run through airports?" Tommy tried to explain that movies and TV shows weren't exactly realistic, but Zara seemed to take them very seriously. She started a list of human romantic gestures that included things like sharing food, making eye contact, and something she called the meaningful rain scene. Lyra, on the other hand, was more interested in practical matters. She observed how Tommy cooked his meals, how he organized his space, how he paid his bills online. She asked about human economics, social hierarchies, and government structures. Her questions were always precise and sometimes uncomfortable. "Why do you work 8 hours a day but only get paid enough to afford a small living space?" she asked once. Tommy didn't have a good answer for that. 3 weeks into their stay, things got weird in a different way. Tommy came home to find Lyra and Zara sitting on the couch with extremely serious expressions on their faces. His first thought was that something terrible had happened. Maybe their spacecraft had been discovered. Maybe they had to leave immediately. Part of him felt relieved at that thought, but another part, a part he didn't want to examine too closely, felt something else. Something like disappointment. "We need to talk to you about something important," Lyra said, gesturing for him to sit down. Tommy sat in the chair across from them, his stomach tightening with anxiety. "What's going on?" Lyra and Zara looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that Tommy had learned they could do somehow. Finally, Lyra turned back to him. "Our research has progressed well. We have learned much about daily human life, social interactions, and emotional expressions. However, there is one aspect of human culture that we cannot fully understand through mere observation." "Okay," Tommy said slowly. "What aspect is that?" Zara leaned forward, her eyes bright with something that looked like excitement mixed with nervousness. "Marriage, the human bonding ceremony, the commitment ritual that joins two individuals in a recognized partnership." Tommy's confusion must have shown on his face because Lyra continued, "We have observed many marriages from a distance. We have watched ceremonies, seen couples interact, studied the legal and social implications, but observation is not the same as experience. To truly understand this fundamental human institution, one of us needs to participate in it directly." The room seemed to tilt slightly. Tommy gripped the arms of his chair. "Participate in it? You mean get married?" "Yes," Lyra said simply. To a human?" "Yes." "To me?" "Yes." Tommy stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. No, that's not. You can't just, no." Zara stood up too, her hands raised in a calming gesture. "Please, let us explain fully before you refuse." "Before I refuse? Before?" Tommy's voice was getting louder. "This isn't something I need to think about. You can't just decide to marry someone as part of a research project. That's not how any of this works." Lyra remained seated, perfectly calm. "In our culture, we recognize that this request is highly unusual by your standards. That is precisely why we need to do this. Marriage is one of the most significant human experiences, and we cannot claim to understand your species without understanding this bond." "But why me?" Tommy practically shouted. "Why does it have to be me?" "Because you are already our research subject," Lyra explained. "Introducing another human would complicate the study. And because—" She paused, which was unusual for her, "because I have been observing you for months now and I believe you are a good person. Someone who could potentially help me understand not just the mechanics of marriage, but the emotional reality of it." Tommy paced back and forth across the small living room. This was insane. This was beyond insane. This was so far past any reasonable definition of normal that he couldn't even see normal anymore. And what happens after? After this research marriage or whatever, do we just get divorced? Does it even count if one person is an alien? The marriage would last for 1 Earth year, Zara explained. At the end of that time, we would return to our home world. And yes, we would erase most of your memories of this experience. You would remember having some strange guests for a while, but the details would be fuzzy. You would certainly not remember the marriage. You can erase memories? Tommy stopped pacing and stared at them. We can adjust certain neural pathways, yes, Zara said. We would not do this without your consent, of course, but it is an option we can offer to make this easier for you. To make this easier, Tommy repeated flatly. You want to marry me? For research purposes, and you think erasing my memory makes it easier? Lyra stood up and walked toward him. Tommy resisted the urge to back away. She stopped a few feet from him, and for the first time since they had arrived, her expression softened. She looked almost vulnerable. I know this seems cold to you, she said quietly. I know our approach appears clinical and detached, but please understand, this is difficult for us too. On our world, bonding rituals are different. They are based on intellectual compatibility and mutual respect, not the emotional connections that humans prize so highly. I am being asked to participate in something completely foreign to me, to open myself to experiences and feelings that my people have evolved beyond. Evolved beyond? Tommy couldn't help the bitter tone in his voice. So emotions are beneath you? Not beneath us, Zara interjected. Just different. We feel things, but not the way you do. We don't have the same capacity for romantic love. That's what makes human relationships so fascinating to us. You build your entire lives around these intense emotional bonds. It's beautiful, actually. Tommy sat back down, suddenly exhausted. This is too much. This is way, way too much. We understand, Lyra said, returning to her seat. We are not asking for an answer tonight. Think about it. Consider what we are proposing. And if I say no, then we will respect that decision, Lyra said. We will complete our research in other ways and leave as planned. Your memories will be adjusted, and you will return to your normal life. Tommy laughed, but there was no humor in it. My normal life. I'm not sure I even remember what that was like anymore. That night, Tommy lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts. The logical part of his brain was screaming at him to refuse to end this bizarre situation as quickly as possible. But another part, a quieter part, was asking different questions. What would it be like? To be married to someone from another world? To experience something no other human had ever experienced? He thought about Lyra. Over the past few weeks, he had grown accustomed to her presence. She was serious and analytical. Yes. But there were moments when he caught glimpses of something else. Curiosity. Wonder. Once, when he had been watching the sunset from his small balcony, she had stood beside him in silence for several minutes. Then she had said, "Your star is quite beautiful. We have 3 suns on our world, but none of them set quite like this." And Zara, with her endless enthusiasm and genuine interest in everything human, she had started learning to cook, following online recipes with intense concentration and creating some truly terrible meals. But she had been so proud of her efforts, and Tommy had eaten the burnt food without complaint because her smile was worth it. Could he do this? Could he actually marry an alien being for the sake of research? The whole thing was absurd. It went against everything rational. And yet, lying there in the dark, Tommy found himself seriously considering it. Maybe it was because his life had been. Tommy spent the next 2 days in a fog of indecision. He would start to form an answer, then immediately doubt himself. Yes, no, maybe, absolutely not, what if, why not? The thoughts spun around in his head like a carousel that wouldn't stop. Lyra and Zara didn't push him. They continued their observations, asked their questions, and gave him space to think. On Saturday morning, Tommy woke up to the smell of something burning. He rushed into the kitchen to find Zara staring sadly at what appeared to be completely charred toast. I was trying to make breakfast, she said apologetically. I read that humans enjoy toast with butter in the morning. I may have misunderstood the time settings. Despite everything, Tommy smiled. It's okay. Here, let me show you. He took out fresh bread and demonstrated how to use the toaster properly. Zara watched intently, asking questions about why humans liked their bread heated and why different people preferred different levels of browning. Lyra came into the kitchen, her silver hair catching the morning light. Zara, perhaps we should leave cooking to Tommy for now. Our physiology does not require the same sustenance, so we lack the intuition for food preparation. But I want to learn, Zara protested. If I am to understand humans, I should understand their relationship with food. It is both practical and emotional for them. She's right, Tommy said, surprising himself. Food is a big part of being human. Sharing meals, cooking for someone, trying new things together. It matters. Lyra studied him with those shifting eyes. You have been thinking about our proposal. It wasn't a question. Tommy poured himself coffee and sat at the small kitchen table. I haven't thought about anything else. Zara sat across from him, her expression hopeful. Lyra remained standing, composed as always, but Tommy thought he detected a tension in her posture. I have questions, Tommy said. A lot of questions. That is reasonable, Lyra replied. First, this marriage ceremony. Where would it happen? How would it happen? Would it even be legal? Lyra sat down at the table, folding her hands in front of her. The ceremony would take place on our ship. It would follow the traditions of my people, adapted to include elements that you would find meaningful. As for legality in human terms, no, it would not be registered with your government. But it would be binding in our culture, which is what matters for the research. What exactly would the ceremony involve? Zara's eyes lit up. Oh, it's quite beautiful, actually. In our culture, bonding ceremonies involve an exchange of light signatures, a sharing of consciousness, and the creation of temporary neural links that allow both parties to understand each other on a deeper level. Neural links? Tommy's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. Like mind reading? Not exactly, Lyra explained. It is more like sharing the essence of who you are. For a brief moment during the ceremony, we would experience each other's thoughts and feelings directly. It can be intense, but it is also necessary for true bonding in our culture. Tommy set down his cup. And after the ceremony, what would this marriage look like day to day? That is what we are trying to understand, Lyra said. We would continue living here as we have been, but we would be officially recognized as bonded partners. I would study how that changes our interactions, your perception of me and my own responses to you. Do you expect? Tommy felt his face heating up, unable to finish the question. Zara understood immediately. Physical intimacy? That would be entirely your choice. Our people experience bonding differently than humans. Physical touch is not required for us to feel connected. But if you wanted to explore that aspect of human marriage, we would discuss appropriate boundaries. Tommy took a long sip of his coffee, trying to process all of this. What happens if I say yes and then change my mind? Can I back out? At any time, Lyra said firmly. We would never force you to continue something that makes you genuinely unhappy. The purpose is to understand human bonding, not to cause suffering. And after the year is up, you really would erase my memories? Only if you wanted us to, Zara said softly. Some memories we would need to blur for your own well-being, to prevent psychological harm from the strangeness of the experience. But if you wanted to remember the core of it, we could arrange that. Tommy stood up and walked to the window. The city stretched out below. People going about their ordinary lives. Going to work, meeting friends, falling in love in normal human ways. He could say no and return to that world. Safe, predictable, alone in his small apartment with his routine and his boring life. Or he could say yes to the most impossible, terrifying, fascinating thing that would ever happen to him. If I agree to this, Tommy said, still looking out the window, I need you to promise me something. What is that? Lyra asked. Promise me that you'll be honest with me. About everything. About what you're feeling, what you're learning, what you're thinking. I can't do this if it's all just clinical observation. If I'm going to marry you, even for research, I need to be treated like a person, not just a subject. There was a long pause. Then Lyra spoke, and her voice was different somehow, softer. I promise. You are not just a subject to me, Tommy. You have not been for quite some time. Tommy turned around. Lyra was standing now, and something in her expression made her look more human than he had ever seen her. vulnerable, uncertain, real. Okay, he said. Okay, I'll do it. Zara actually squealed with delight, a very unalien sound.
Really? Truly?
I must be out of my mind, Tommy said, laughing nervously. But yes, let's do this thing. Let's get married. The next 3 days were a whirlwind of preparation. Lyra and Zara took Tommy to their ship for the first time. It was hidden behind some kind of cloaking technology in an empty lot on the edge of the city. When they deactivated the field, the ship shimmered into view. It was beautiful, like a crystal sculpture that somehow flew through space. Inside, everything glowed with soft light. The walls seemed to be made of the same crystalline material, but they were warm to the touch. Zara gave him a tour while Lyra prepared for the ceremony. There were rooms that defied physics, spaces that seemed larger on the inside than the outside. There was an observation deck where you could see the stars even though they were still on Earth. Tommy stood there looking up at the cosmos and felt smaller and larger than he ever had before. Nervous? Zara asked, standing beside him. Terrified, Tommy admitted. For what it's worth, I think you are very brave, and I think my sister is fortunate to have you as her research partner. Research partner, Tommy repeated. Is that really all this is to her? Zara looked at him with those color-shifting eyes. My sister is different from me. She is more serious, more focused on duty and knowledge. But I have seen changes in her since we arrived. Small things. The way she listens when you talk about your day. The way she adjusts the temperature in the apartment because she learned you prefer it cooler. The way she looks at you when you are not watching. I do not think this is only research for her anymore, but she may not realize that yet. Tommy absorbed this information, not sure what to do with it. Before he could respond, Lyra appeared. She was wearing something different. A flowing garment that looked like it was made of liquid light, constantly moving and changing colors. She looked stunning and otherworldly and absolutely terrifying. It is time, she said. The ceremony took place in a circular room at the heart of the ship. The floor was transparent, showing the earth below. Holographic figures appeared around them, Lyra and Zara's people watching from across the stars. Tommy felt like he might pass out from the sheer impossibility of it all. He was wearing a strange combination of his best suit and a robe that Zara had given him. It felt ridiculous, but also somehow right. Zara stood at the center of the room, ready to officiate. She had explained the ceremony to him several times, but Tommy's head was spinning so much that he could barely remember the details. We gather across the vastness of space to witness this bonding, Zara began, her voice taking on harmonics that seemed to resonate through the entire ship. Two beings from different worlds, different species, different ways of understanding existence, come together to create something new. Lyra stepped forward and extended her hand. Tommy took it. Her skin was cool and slightly vibrated with energy. She looked into his eyes and he saw something there that he hadn't seen before. Fear. She was scared too. Do you, Tommy of Earth, agree to share your light with Lyra of the Silver Stars? Zara asked. I do, Tommy said, his voice shakier than he wanted it to be. Do you, Lyra of the Silver Stars, agree to share your light with Tommy of Earth? I do, Lyra said, and her voice was steady. Zara produced 2 bands that glowed with internal light. She placed one on Tommy's wrist and one on Lyra's. The moment both bands were in place, they began to warm and then seemed to merge with their skin, becoming part of them. And now, Zara said, the sharing of consciousness. This was the part Tommy had been most nervous about. Lyra placed both her hands on either side of his face. Her eyes locked with his, and then Tommy felt it, a rushing sensation like falling and flying at the same time. And suddenly he wasn't just in his own mind anymore. He could feel Lyra's thoughts, her emotions, everything she was. He felt her loneliness, the weight of expectations from her people, the fear that she would fail in her mission. But he also felt her curiosity. The next few months were unlike anything Tommy could have imagined. Being married to an alien, even in the strange circumstances of their arrangement, changed things in ways both subtle and profound. Lyra was still focused on her research, still taking notes and asking analytical questions, but there was a warmth there now that hadn't existed before. She laughed at his jokes sometimes. She would sit closer to him on the couch. She had started saying we instead of I when talking about their daily plans. Zara remained their constant companion and occasional mediator. She had fully embraced Earth culture by this point. becoming addicted to human food despite not needing to eat it, binge-watching every show she could find, and even starting to pick up local slang. She had a natural gift for understanding human emotions, which made her invaluable when Tommy and Lyra struggled to understand each other, because they did struggle sometimes. Their differences weren't just physical. They were fundamental. Lyra approached everything from a place of logic and observation. Tommy was guided by emotion and intuition. These different perspectives led to conflicts, usually small ones, but occasionally bigger. One evening, Tommy came home from a particularly frustrating day at work. His project had failed testing, his boss had been critical, and he just wanted to collapse on the couch and forget about everything. Lyra greeted him with her usual questions about his day, pulling out her light tablet to take notes. "Can we not do this right now?" Tommy said more sharply than he intended. Lyra looked confused. "Not do what? Discuss your day? This is part of our routine. I know it's part of your research, but sometimes I just want to come home and not be studied. Can't we just exist together without everything being documented?" Lyra's expression shifted, something hurt flickering across her features. "Everything I do is not just research anymore, Tommy. I thought you understood that." Tommy sighed, the fight draining out of him. "I know, I'm sorry. Bad day." Zara, who had been watching from the kitchen, came over and sat between them. Tommy needs what humans call processing time. He needs to decompress from stress before he can talk about it. "Lyra, remember the episodes we watched about emotional regulation? This is what they meant, but I want to help," Lyra said softly. "How can I help if I do not understand what is wrong?" "Just be here," Tommy said. "Don't analyze it. Don't document it. Just sit with me," so she did. Lyra put away her tablet and simply sat beside him on the couch. After a few minutes, she carefully reached out and took his hand. They sat in silence as the light faded outside the windows, and somehow, that simple gesture of wordless support meant more than any advice or analysis could have. These small moments of connection became more frequent. Lyra learned to read Tommy's moods, to know when he needed space and when he needed company. Tommy learned to appreciate Lyra's logical approach to problems, her ability to see solutions he would have missed. They developed their own rhythms, their own private jokes, their own ways of being together. One Saturday, Zara insisted they do something she called a proper human date. She had been watching romantic movies again and had compiled a list of activities that couples apparently did. Tommy and Lyra, amused by her enthusiasm, agreed. They went to a small Italian restaurant that Tommy liked. Lyra tried her first human meal, really tried it, not just for research but because she wanted to share the experience with him. She found the pasta fascinating, the way the sauce mixed with the noodles, the complexity of flavors. She didn't have the same taste perception as humans, but she could detect certain aspects of it, and she seemed to genuinely enjoy the experience. After dinner, they walked through the park. It was autumn and the leaves were changing colors. Lyra stopped to examine them, holding a red maple leaf up to the lamplight. "Your planet experiences such dramatic seasonal changes. It must feel like living in several different worlds over the course of a year." "I never thought about it that way," Tommy said. "But yeah, I guess it does. On my world, things are more constant. Our climate is controlled, our environment carefully maintained. There is beauty in that stability, but there is also something appealing about change, about natural cycles and transformations." They sat on a bench overlooking a small pond. The city lights reflected on the water's surface. Tommy found himself studying Lyra's profile, the way the light played across her silver skin, the gentle shift of colors in her eyes. "Can I ask you something personal?" he said. "Of course. Back on your world before you came here, were you happy?" Lyra was quiet for a long time. "I do not think I understood happiness the way you mean it. I was satisfied with my work. I was fulfilling my purpose. But there was always something missing, though I could not identify what it was. And now," she turned to look at him, and her eyes held something warm and uncertain. "Now I understand what was missing. Connection. Real emotional connection with another being. Not just intellectual exchange, but genuine caring. You have taught me that, Tommy. You have shown me what it feels like to care about someone beyond duty or research." Tommy's heart was racing. "Lyra, I know this complicates everything," she interrupted. "I know I should remain objective, but I cannot. Every day I find myself less interested in my research and more interested in simply being with you. Is that what humans call falling in love? Tommy reached out and gently touched her face, the way she had done during their ceremony. Yeah, I think it might be. Is that what you are experiencing as well? Yes, Tommy admitted. I'm falling in love with you. Which is insane because you're an alien and you're supposed to leave in a few months, and this whole thing was supposed to be about research. But I can't help it. Lyra leaned into his touch, closing her eyes. Then we are both experiencing this insanity together. They kissed for the first time right there on the park bench. It was awkward at first because their physiologies were slightly different, but they figured it out. And when they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. The kind of smile that comes from doing something completely unexpected and finding joy in it. Zara was waiting up for them when they got home, trying very hard to pretend she hadn't been watching the whole date through some alien monitoring device. So how was it? Was it romantic? Did you do the thing with the eye contact and the meaningful conversation? Zara, Lyra said, but she was still smiling. Privacy, please. I am your sister and your research assistant. I deserve details. We had a good time, Tommy said diplomatically. A really good time. Zara looked between them, noticed their joined hands, and her eyes went wide. Oh, did you finally tell each other about the feelings? The mutual attraction that you both thought was secret but was actually incredibly obvious to everyone? Lyra actually laughed, a sound that Tommy had heard only rarely. Yes, little sister. We told each other? This is excellent data. Zara pulled out her own tablet. The progression from arranged research bonding to genuine emotional attachment, documented in real time. Zara, Lyra said more firmly this time. Right. Privacy, romance, human customs. Zara tucked away her tablet but couldn't stop grinning. I am happy for you both. Genuinely happy, not just research happy. Over the following weeks, things deepened between Tommy and Lyra. They were still learning about each other, still navigating the vast differences between their species, but they were doing it together. Lyra became more comfortable showing affection, though she still analyzed everything. Tommy learned to appreciate her analytical nature, understanding it as her way of caring deeply about things. They had their first real fight about a month after their date in the park. Tommy had made plans to visit his mother without telling Lyra, and she felt excluded and hurt. We are partners now, she said, her voice tight with an emotion she was still learning to name. Partners share their plans. They include each other in their lives. You're right, Tommy admitted. I'm sorry. I'm still getting used to this, to having someone who wants to be included. I do want to be included, in everything. Is that too much? No, Tommy said softly. It's not too much. It's actually really nice. They worked through it, talking for hours about expectations and boundaries and what partnership meant to both of them. It wasn't easy, but they emerged from the conflict stronger, more understanding of each other. Zara watched all of this with fascination and something that looked like longing. One night when Lyra had gone to the ship to file reports with their homeworld, Zara sat with Tommy on the couch. Do you think I will ever experience what you and Lyra have? She asked quietly. Tommy looked at her, surprised by the vulnerability in her voice. Of course you will. You're amazing, Zara. You're curious and kind and enthusiastic about everything. Some lucky person, human or otherwise, is going to be blown away by you. But our people do not bond this way. When we return home, there will be no one who understands these feelings I have developed from watching you both. I will be alone with all this knowledge of love and connection, and no one to share it with. Tommy put his arm around her shoulders, a gesture that had become natural over the months. Then maybe you should stay. Zara looked at him with wide eyes. Stay on Earth? Why not? You love it here. You love human culture, and there are billions of humans. I bet at least one of them would appreciate having an alien sister-in-law. Lyra would never agree. The look on Lyra's face when Tommy told her his decision was something he would remember forever. Shock, joy, fear, and love all mixed together in an expression that was purely, beautifully human, despite her alien features. She had learned emotions from him, and now she wore them openly, without hiding behind logic or research. Are you certain? She asked, her voice shaking. Tommy, you would be leaving your entire world, your family, your friends, your species. This is not a small thing. I know, Tommy said. Believe me, I've thought about nothing else. But when I imagine my life without you, it feels empty. And when I imagine life with you, even on a world I've never seen, it feels right. So yes, I'm certain. Zara, who had somehow been listening from inside, came rushing out onto the balcony. Truly? You are truly coming with us? I am, Tommy confirmed, and Zara pulled him into a tight hug. This is wonderful, unexpected, unprecedented. She was bouncing with excitement. I must start preparing documentation. There will be so many protocols to follow, permissions to obtain. A human has never requested permanent residence on our world before. Over the next 2 weeks, preparations became frantic. Zara worked tirelessly to communicate with their home world, explaining the situation and requesting special dispensation for Tommy to travel with them. There were councils to convince, rules to navigate, and countless forms that existed as patterns of light rather than paper. Tommy had his own preparations to make. He couldn't tell anyone the truth about where he was going. He told his mother he was taking a job opportunity overseas, somewhere remote with limited communication. The lie hurt. But what else could he say? He sold most of his possessions, keeping only a few meaningful items that Zara assured him could be safely transported. Photos of his family, his grandmother's watch, a few books, small pieces of earth to carry with him to the stars. His co-workers threw him a goodbye party at the office. They gave him a card and a gift certificate to a restaurant he would never visit. Kevin, his closest friend there, pulled him aside. Man, you've been different these last few months, happier but also distracted, like you're living in 2 worlds at once. That's more accurate than you know, Tommy said with a sad smile. This opportunity, wherever you're going, it's for someone, isn't it? You fell in love. Tommy nodded. Yeah, I did, with someone completely unexpected. Good for you, man. Good for you. Kevin hugged him. Stay in touch if you can, okay? I'll try, Tommy lied, knowing he wouldn't be able to. The hardest goodbye was to his mother. She lived 3 hours away, and Tommy made the drive on a sunny Saturday morning. He helped her in the garden, fixed a leaky faucet, and made her laugh with old stories. They had dinner together, and as the sun set, Tommy found himself memorizing everything about her face, her voice, her presence. You're really going far away, aren't you? She said, as if she could sense the finality of this goodbye. Yeah, Mom, really far. This person you're going to be with, they make you happy? Happier than I ever thought possible. She cupped his face in her hands, the way she had when he was a child. Then go. Live your life. Love your person. Don't waste time worrying about what you're leaving behind. I'll always be your mother, no matter where you are. Tommy hugged her tight, trying not to cry. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. The drive home was one of the longest of Tommy's life. He let himself grieve for what he was leaving, knowing that once he made this choice, there would be no going back. When he returned to the apartment, Lyra took one look at his face and wrapped him in her arms. She had gotten much better at physical comfort over the months. Saying goodbye is one of the most difficult human experiences, she said softly. I wish I could make it easier. You being here makes it easier, Tommy said into her shoulder. The night before they were scheduled to leave, Tommy couldn't sleep. He stood at his apartment window looking out at the city lights one last time. Every light represented a life, a story, billions of humans living and loving and struggling. He was about to leave all of it behind. Lyra came to stand beside him. Second thoughts? No, Tommy said. Just last thoughts. Goodbye thoughts. There is still time to change your mind. We could alter your memories, let you return to your life. You would be safe, comfortable, but I wouldn't have you. No, Lyra admitted. You would not have me. Then there's nothing to reconsider. The next morning, they took one last trip to the ship. The retrieval team had arrived during the night. More of Lyra and Zara's people come to escort them home. They were curious about Tommy, studying him with obvious interest but also respect. Lyra had made sure they understood he was not a specimen, but a person, her bonded partner, deserving of dignity. The ship was different now, larger, with sections that had been modified for Tommy's needs. They had created a space with Earth-normal atmosphere and gravity, filled with things that would be familiar to him. Zara had even managed to replicate his coffee maker, though she warned him the coffee might taste slightly different using synthesized ingredients. "We want you to be comfortable," Lyra explained, showing him around. "The journey will take several weeks. This will be your space during that time, your piece of Earth among the stars." Tommy walked through the space they had created for him, touching the walls, the furniture, all of it designed with him in mind. "You did all this for me?" "Of course," Lyra said, as if it was obvious. "You are giving up your world for me. The least I can do is give you a comfortable place in mine." The departure was set for sunset. Tommy stood on the balcony of his apartment, one final time watching the sun sink toward the horizon. The city was beautiful in the golden light. He tried to fix it all in his memory, the sounds of traffic, the smell of rain that was starting to fall, the feeling of Earth's gravity, the sight of one sun setting in a blue sky. Zara came to stand with him. "Are you ready?" "No," Tommy said honestly, "but I'm going anyway." "That is what courage is," Zara said. "Doing the thing even when you are not ready." They returned to the ship together, and Tommy didn't look back. If he looked back, he might not be able to leave. The ship lifted off silently, the cloaking technology hiding it from any human eyes that might have been watching. Tommy watched through a viewing port as the Earth fell away below them. His planet, his home, getting smaller and smaller until it was just a blue and green marble floating in the vast darkness. Lyra stood beside him holding his hand. "I promise I will spend the rest of my life making sure you do not regret this choice." "I won't regret it," Tommy said, though his voice wavered. "But I think I'm allowed to be sad about what I'm leaving behind while also being excited about what's ahead." "That is very human of you," Lyra said with a small smile, holding two opposing emotions at once. "I'm teaching you all my tricks," Tommy said, trying to joke through the tightness in his throat. The journey to Lyra's homeworld took 4 weeks. Tommy spent the time learning about his new home, studying their language, their customs, their history. It was overwhelming and fascinating. Lyra's people, the ones she called the Silver Stars, had a civilization that was millions of years old. They had given up physical conflict, poverty, and disease, focusing instead on knowledge, art, and understanding. But they had also, Lyra explained, lost something along the way. They had evolved past strong emotions, seeing them as inefficient and primitive. Their bonds were logical, practical. The idea of loving someone so much you would cross the universe for them was as alien to them as their technology had once been to Tommy. "You are going to challenge everything they think they know," Zara said one day during their journey. "They will study you, yes, they will be curious, but more than that, you will make them question whether they gave up too much in their pursuit of logic." "No pressure or anything," Tommy joked weakly. As they approached their destination, Tommy got his first glimpse of Lyra's homeworld. It was stunningly beautiful, unlike anything on Earth. 3 suns lit the sky in shifting patterns. The oceans were made of something that looked like liquid crystal, reflecting light in rainbow patterns. Cities floated on beams of light, crystalline structures that seemed impossible. "Welcome to Etheria," Lyra said softly. "My home. Now your home too." The ship landed in a port that was more like a sculpture than a building. Beings that looked similar to Lyra and Zara moved through the space with graceful efficiency. They all stopped to stare when Tommy emerged. He was, after all, the first human to ever walk on their world. A delegation waited for them, elders of the Silver Stars dressed in flowing garments of light. They studied Tommy with their color-changing eyes, and he forced himself to stand straight, to meet their gaze, to show no fear even though his heart was racing. The eldest stepped forward. "Tommy of Earth, you have made a choice that no human has made before. You have left your world, your people, your entire reality, for love. This concept is strange to us, but we recognize the courage it required. You are welcome on Etheria. We have much to learn from each other." Tommy bowed slightly, the way Lyra had taught him. "Thank you." I hope I can honor the trust you're placing in me. The first few weeks on Etheria were difficult. Everything was different. The light, the gravity, the sounds, the smells. Tommy felt disoriented and homesick. There were moments when he woke up and forgot where he was, reaching for things,